crafty friends, welcome to day 10 of Die Cut December 2024. Today I am going to use these dies to make an engagement card for you, and I'm going to be following this sketch. Feel free to take a screenshot now if you'd like to keep a copy for yourself. I hope you don't mind the sound of the rain on the conservatory roof. I find it quite soothing, but if it does get really heavy I will switch to voiceover. Today I'm going to do some die cutting from something other than just card, and I've got here some clear embossing powder which I'm going to sprinkle onto this bit of baking paper or baking parchment. What is it? Let's have a look. Tesco non-stick baking paper sheets. So that is a nice little blob of clear embossing powder. And now I've got some white. This is just one I picked up at a charity shop. It's called Heat It Up Seafoam White. And I'm going to sprinkle that around and about the place. And now I'm also going to sprinkle on some indigo blue luscious powder. This is raspberry jam? Yes, raspberry jam. And I'm going to distribute it around and kind of mix it into the embossing powders. And now I'm going to add in some crushed velvet. Again, mixing that into the clear and the white. It's not an exact science, this, just mix random amounts until you get something that you want. It's a kind of trial and error thing. I might add a little bit more white. Just use this makeup brush to sweep the stray little bits. You can move it around with a makeup brush, but just get everything more or less in the middle so it's one big blob. Now I'm going to put another piece of baking paper over that, and I've got my little travel iron here which is switched on and ready to go. Turned it up to about number 2. There's no water in it. I'm not using the steam setting. I don't know what the degrees is because it's a, what was this, £10 this cost me, so it's really basic. The little light is supposed to go off when it reaches temperature, but it's a very, very faint light, so it's hard to tell, so I just leave it for a minute or two. And you'll know if it's not hot enough because this won't work. So I'll give it a go and see if it works. And I'm putting down some strongish pressure, and this should melt and mix the embossing powder and capture the pigment powder. That's definitely melting. You can wiggle your iron and move it around. This is really very much just play and see. So I think that will do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the heat and pressure on this while I peel off the baking paper, because if you peel it off without adding heat, the embossing powder, etc., goes matte. You can blast it with a heat tool to make it glossy again, but if you apply heat while you're peeling, then the two bits that you get from it will be glossy. So what I do is just peel and slide. I might turn the temperature up a little bit because it's not quite peeling right. So peel and slide and separate. And then I've got 2 blobs that I'm going to leave to cool down. I'm going to unplug my iron so I don't forget. While the embossing powder is still warm and molten, you could sprinkle on a little bit of glitter, and as it cools and sets it will capture that glitter. I think we'll stick with this for now. It's still warm but it's not molten, so I'm going to slide my palette knife under there to get it started, and then carefully and gently peel the paper away from this blob. If you try and peel the blob away from the paper you might tear it, but this way works well. This one is the one that was on top and is a little bit more delicate. So I just flip that over so I can hold the embossing powder blob down and peel the baking paper off. And I'll keep those because I can use those again for the same thing. So now I've got two glossy embossed pigment powdery blobs that I can die cut from. So I think I'll just work with this one, the slightly thicker one. I'll put that one to one side. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to trim it down so that I can get this to run through my little die cutting machine. And I'm going to trim down a bit of baking parchment. This is just going to protect my embossing from the cutting plate. And all I'm going to do is put these little heart dies, I've got 5 of them, they're all the same size. Just put them on here like this so that I can die cut a few hearts. And there we have 5 glossy hearts. Before I do anything else with my hearts, I'm going to use this die to emboss and die cut my card panel. So I'm thinking, let's see which way up, probably that way. And about 1/3 of the way over. I'll hold this in place with the sticky note because it won't leave a mark after embossing. So there we have a nice little bit of texture. I'm going to add this to a card blank now. I'm not going to put anything behind the aperture because I want the hearts to be the star of the show. But I want them to have something to sit on. I'll add a little bit of glue on some of the bits. So that's all glued down now. I've cut a heart from smooth white card and put some high-tack PVA on it, and I'm going to stick this bolder embossed heart to it because I want to pop this one up a bit, and it won't really pop up well without some support underneath. In fact, I think I'll cut out 2 more of those and I'll do a DIY chipboard. So that's now 3 cardboard hearts thick plus the embossed topper. I'll dip each of these into some high-tack glue and stick it on. So I've covered up much of the swirly-whirliness of the thing that I die cut and embossed on the background, so maybe that wasn't the best choice for this particular card, but we're going to make it work. I think I forgot to mention that this is a engagement card because we're working our way through the alphabet when it comes to sentiments, and we're now on engagement. But have I got an engagement stamp? No, I haven't, which is very strange because every wedding is preceded by some form of engagement, and you'd think there'd be stamps that say happy engagement or something. So you could use congratulations or a special day or something. This is one that says wishing you happily ever after, which I think is appropriate for an engagement card. I'm going to heat emboss this in gold, I think, because I like the combination of gold and the purples. So I'm going to melt this gold embossing powder with my heat tool, but I want to be careful not to melt this embossing powder. So I'm going to shield it as best I can with this bit of card. So I did mess up one of the hearts. This is one of those do as I say, not do as I do videos. I make the mistakes so you don't have to. If you're going to heat emboss on your card, then do it before you stick your embossed hearts down. So just to rectify that, I've die cut another one. And to add a little bit of something around the hearts, because I did cover up all that die cutting and embossing that I did on the background, I'm just adding some Nuvo drops. So that's an engagement card made with this technique. I've got some of this left which I want to use up because I don't think it's going to store particularly well. I think although it's fairly flexible, it can be a bit brittle. So I want to use it up, and I'll do a couple more cards and come back to you to show you how they turned out. Right, see you in a tick. And I'm back, and I have 3 more cards for you made using the remainder of this embossing powder blob thing. So that's card number 1. This is card number 2. Instead of die cutting this swirly whirly thing from my card panel, I put it in the middle and I ran it through my cuttlebug with the embossing sandwich. So it embossed the pattern onto the cardstock rather than cutting into it. So that's another way you can use your dies that we talked about in Saturday's 10 ways to stretch your dies video. And then I cut out lots of hearts and stuck them on in a little cascade, and then added a congratulations in gold. I die cut that out with a stitched rectangle die. With these, what I actually did before die cutting was to use some double-sided adhesive sticky sheets to stick the blobs onto some white card, and then I ran the blobs with the white card through my die cutting machine, and it just made them a little bit more robust to handle. These ones here are just the embossing powder and pigment blob that I made, and so they're a tad delicate, but by sticking them on some card I made them more robust. For card number 3, I did the swirly whirly die cutting thing, but I did it on the right hand side just for a change. And before I stuck my panel down, I used some DIY gilding wax to colour the card behind the apertures. This is just beeswax furniture polish and pigment powder, raspberry jam I believe, mixed in together and kept in a little pot. I made this in the summer, no, before the summer, and it's perfectly fine. I do have a video on how to make your own DIY gilding wax, so I'll leave a link to that down below and up in the eye. I then die cut out a vellum heart and then a larger embossed blob heart and stuck one on top of the other and popped it on that thirds intersection there. And I chose a congrats again. It's a scripty font. I didn't have a die to cut that out with, so I cut it out with my scissors. And I ran around the cut edge with my embossing tool before I stuck it on, and that just bevels the edges and makes them look a bit more neat and tidy, a bit more die cut than scissor cut. So I'm really happy with that, and I do like the ever so slightly shimmery gilding wax poking through there. And for my 4th and final card, I decided to go landscape. And I used some dies to make a DIY aperture. That's another thing we talked about in Saturday's video. So I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heart-shaped apertures. I didn't colour behind it this time because I wanted to have one of the hearts filled with a DIY chipboard topped with the embossing blob. So these little empty hearts just add a bit of texture. And I did manage to find an On Your Engagement stamp set. That was from Clearly Besotted Stamps. It was either tiny type or miniature type, I think, were the names of the stamp sets that I have. I almost left it at that, but everything felt a little bit kind of one-sided because there was this gold, a blob of purple, and then nothing here apart from an aperture. So I decided just to run a line of gold Nouveau drops from one side to the other, and I think that works, and I'm really happy with that. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and it's given you a few ideas that you can use in your own card making. If it has, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 11 of Die Cut December 2024. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.